U.S. government should hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. I was walking back at 8 p.m. To my hotel and I got attacked in the street. This is the only country where I got attacked in the street.
In this explosive interview, Tucker Carlson sits down with visionary founder of Telegram, Pavel Durov. Durov reveals the intense pressure Telegram faced from governments around the world and unexpected hurdles thrown by tech giants like Apple and Google. Discover why Durov chose Dubai as his base and how he's been misunderstood as Russian ally when the reality is far more complex. Get ready for a deep dive into the untold story of Telegram's fight for freedom in a world of increasing control.
I have heard people say that Telegram is a part of the Russian government, and you're describing the opposite. You're saying you had to leave the country because you wouldn't bow to their demands.
Well, exactly like you're saying, people who have very limited knowledge of where Telegram came from, they would make these claims. They could be encouraged by our competitors who see it as an easy way to discredit us because, Telegram is spreading like forest fire. 2.5 million users sign up every day and we're sort of a threat. So I'm not surprised there's this perception because our competitors, they spend tens of billions on marketing and they're known for using PR firms to also engage in campaigns like that. We tried several places. We first went to Berlin. We tried to set up a company in Berlin. We then tried London, Singapore, San Francisco, you name it. We've been everywhere. And
why didn't you stay in any of those places?
Oh, because the bureaucratic hurdles were just too difficult to overcome. I was bringing the best-in-class programmers in the world to these places, and I was trying to hire them from a local company. And the response I got in places like Germany, for example, is that, no, you can't hire people from outside of the European Union because you should first run some newspaper ad in a local magazine, whatever. And then if for 6 months nobody responds from engineers that are available inside the European Union and Germany, then you're allowed kind of to hire outsiders. And I thought it was a crazy idea because...
Why didn't you just say they were illiterate refugees?
Well, because we didn't consider ourselves refugees. We were, very successul people. We could have gone anywhere.
I know, but if you told them you were illiterate refugees, they would let you stay. So you go from Germany to Singapore to London to San Francisco. What happened in San Francisco?
Well, in San Francisco, we really thought that would be the place for us to be in because all the tech companies are there or around San Francisco. And there were two things that happened that made us think twice. Well, one thing is pretty obvious. I was in San Francisco. I got attacked on the street after visiting, I think it was Jack Dorsey in the Twitter's office. And I was walking back at 8 p.m. To my hotel and I got attacked in the street. This is the only country where I got attacked in the street.
What happened?
Just three big guys tried to grab my phone from my hands. I was tweeting about the fact that I just met the founder of Twitter. That seemed the right idea for me back then to do. And I got attacked. I didn't want to let them have my phone. They probably didn't expect. So I snatched my phone back. There was a short fight with the guys. There was a little bit blood involved. But I managed to run away and decided I should probably stay.
They probably don't mug a lot of Russians. They might have been surprised.
Well, they were much taller than me, I must admit. And there were three of them. But I think I put up a good fight.
Were you surprised that this happened in San Francisco?
Completely.
Yeah.
It was a shock to me because I traveled a lot. That was the first place I got attacked. And I thought, all right, maybe we shouldn't look at San Francisco. Maybe there are other places in America where
you don't get attacked?
Exactly. But, there's this second part, which was probably more alarming there in the US. We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the US. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, whatever they are called.
The U.S. government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the U.S. government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The U.S. government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
That's right. And that's a little surprising to hear. Maybe it's not surprising. It's offensive. You're confident that happened?
Yes. There is no reason for my engineer to make up the stories. Also because I personally experienced similar pressure in the US. Whenever I would go to the US, I would have two FBI agents greeting me at the airport, asking questions. One time I was having my breakfast at 9 a.m. and the FBI showed up at my house that I was renting. And that was quite surprising. And I thought, we're getting too much attention here. It's probably not the best environment to run.
Why would had you committed a crime?
No. They were interested to learn more about Telegram. They knew I, left Russia. They knew what we were doing, but they wanted details. And my understanding is that they wanted to establish a relationship to, in a way, control Telegram better. I understand they were doing their job. It's just that for us running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be in. We want to be focused on what we do, not on that sort.
The government relations. So then you came to Dubai.
Yes. 7 years ago, we moved here. We first wanted just to try it for half a year, see if it works out. And it turned out to be a great place. We never looked back and we never wanted to change the UAE for any other place after that.
Why?
Well, for a number of reasons. First, the ease of doing business here is so high. For example, you can hire people from anywhere in the world as long as you're paying them a good salary. The residence permits granted automatically. It's very different. If you try to do that in Europe and some other countries, it's very different from them. Second, it's very tax efficient. Third, the infrastructure is great. You get a lot for the minimum amount of taxes you are paying. The roads, the airports, the hotels, everything. I think you witnessed it yourself.
Yes.
But I think more importantly is that it's a neutral place. It's a neutral country. It's a small country that wants to be friends with everybody. It's not aligned geopolitically with any of the big superpowers. And I think it's the best place for a neutral platform like ours to be in if we want to make sure we can defend our users' privacy and freedom of speech.
So in the time that you've been here, there have been a number of wars and threats of war, precursors to war. Have you had any pressure from the government here, honestly, any pressure from the government here to reveal a backdoor into Telegram or to ban anyone or to make any changes to your business?
Zero. That's the best part. For all the 7 years we've been here, there has been zero pressure coming from the UAE towards Telegram. They've been very supportive, very helpful, and it's a big contrast from whatever we've experienced before.
What about what you've experienced since you moved here in those 7 years? Have you come under pressure from other governments under whose jurisdiction you don't fall, but to accommodate their demands?
Well, of course. Well, Telegram is a large platform. We are popular in many, many countries. And we've been receiving a lot of requests, demands. Some of them were legitimate. Like if there was a group of people who was promoting violence, there was some terrorist activity that was spreading violence in some parts of the world, publicly posting things that any decent human being would disallow or wouldn't want to be posted, we would help them. But in some other cases where we thought it would be crossing the line, it wouldn't be in line with our values of freedom of speech and protecting people's private correspondence, we would ignore those.
Can you give us an example of a request that you thought crossed into censorship and spying, violating people's privacy?
Well, there's I would say, a very funny story related to your home country. After the events of January the 6th, we received a letter from, I believe, congressmen of the Democratic side, and they requested that we would share all the data we had in relation to what they called this uprising. And we checked it with our lawyers, and they said, you better ignore it. But the letter seemed very serious, and the letter said, if you fail to comply with this request, you will be in violation with the U.S. Constitution or something like that.
They wanted data on people who voted for the other guy in the election.
Well, they wanted the data of people who were demonstrating in Washington or wherever they're doing. You're probably right. I'm not an expert in the U.S. politics.
Yeah.
What's funny about that is 2 years, 2 weeks after that letter, we got another letter, a new letter from the Republican side of the Congress. And there we read that if we give out any data according to the previous request, we would be in violation of the US Constitution. So we got 2 letters that said whatever we do, we'd be violating the US Constitution in a way. That was my understanding of these letters.
From the same legislative body, both from the U.S. Congress?
Yes.
So how do you respond to that?
Well, the same way we respond to most such requests, we decided to ignore them because it's such a complicated matter related to internal politics in the U.S. We don't want to take any...
I believe this strongly, if you ignore your problems, most of them do go away.
It's very true.
It is very... No one says it, but it's true. That's amazing. Have you ever had demands that you can't ignore?
Well, it depends, right?
Well, unreasonable demands.
So I would say the largest pressure towards Telegram is not coming from governments. It's coming from Apple and Google.
Huh.
Right? So when it comes to freedom of speech, those 2 platforms, they could basically censor whatever you can read, access on your smartphone.
So, do you run the risk of being thrown out of their stores?
Exactly. That's what they make very clear, that if we fail to comply with their guidelines, so they call it, Telegram could be removed from the stores.
Well, that would be not a small thing for you, right?
Well, it won't be a small thing for us because obviously a big chunk of the world's population will lose access to a valuable tool that they're using every day, but it will not also be a small thing for them. I believe there must be find some compromise in such cases, but Apple and Google are not very compromising when it comes to their guidelines. If they believe some content is against their rules, they will see to it that all the apps that are distributed through their stores comply with these rules.
Are any of those rules, or do you interpret any of those rules? Do you believe any of them to be political in nature?
Some of them, but it's not the rules, it's the application of the rules. The rules themselves, they're pretty general, right? So there must be no violence, discrimination, publicly available, child abuse materials. It's hard to disagree with that.
Yes.
But then when they start to apply those rules, sometimes we are not agreeing with their interpretation, and we try to get back to Apple or Google, whoever it is, and say, look, we think you got it wrong. We think actually this is the legitimate way of people expressing their opinions. And sometimes they do agree, to their credit. Sometimes they disagree, and we still have to take some content down, at least in the version of Telegram that is distributed through their platforms.
So, how often do you intersect with the National Security Agency, NSA? And I ask that as someone whose texts were read by them. So I know that they're very active in this world. What's your experience been?
I think the NSA is not an agency that works with you directly, right? You're not coming here.
You're so diplomatic. I love it. NSA is not an agency that works with you directly. No, that is true. That is true.
So my knowledge of my interactions with the NSA is very limited.
Yes.
I could read something in the newspapers about my phone being penetrated with Pegasus or something like that. No idea whether it's true or not, but this is the only source of information I can have about me personally being of interest to any of the secret agencies.
But you've got to think, even though you haven't done an interview in 7 years-ish, it's widely known by people who are interested who you are and your role in this. I mean, you've got to think you're under just crazy amounts of surveillance, wouldn't you think?
That's probably true. It would sound funny, but I assume by default that the devices I use are compromised.
Yeah.
Because you will still use an iPhone or an Android phone, and after experiencing what I experienced in the US, I have very limited faith in platforms developed in the US from a security standpoint.
Yes.